This is Jason DeBoard with the Original Prop blog. Today I'm doing a part 3 of the ongoing series of videos here about the Luke Skywalker lightsaber up for public auction this coming week by Profiles in History. Why a part 3? So I'm just going to get right into it. Some of this will be a little bit redundant from the first 2 videos, but I think it's important just to sort of cover all the bases and kind of try to make sense of the information that's out there in the public. So as you can see, as I'm recording this on December 8th, there's 4 days, a little over 4 days left until this comes up for auction. There's 0 current bids. So I wanted to play at the beginning here a little segment from this documentary called The Galaxy Britain Built: Droids, Darth Vader, and Lightsabers. I think it's important to hear from Roger Christian. You know, he's done a lot of interviews and everything, and I'm trying to be fair about this. So I just wanted to run a couple minutes of this just to sort of give some background on the history of the piece. Again, I hadn't seen this before today, so I thought this was a good little summary of the background and history of the piece. So I'm going to let this run for just a couple minutes here.
Every aspect of the movie.
Roger Christian helped John with the sets, but was also responsible for the science fiction weapons. But one, the most important of all, was proving elusive.
I hadn't tackled the lightsaber, and we called it the laser sword because we were British. I knew this lightsaber was the Excalibur of this film. I knew it would be the iconic image. It was amazing. I went to Brunnings in Great Marlborough Street, who we rented all our photography equipment, anything we needed, and I'd buy equipment there. I just said to the owner, do you have anything here that's unusual, stuff that might be interesting? And he pointed me over the side of the room. He said, there's a load of boxes under there. I haven't looked at those for years. Go and have a rummage through. And it was the first box. It literally was covered in dust. And I pulled it out, opened the lid, and there was tissue paper. And then when I pulled it open, now it goes into slow motion, the music rising, and out came a Graflex handle from a 40s press camera. And I just took it and went, there it is. This is the Holy Grail. And there was about 5 or 6 in there. We bought the lot. I raced back to the studios, got my T-strip, stuck that round the handle. I stuck 7 round it. From the calculator I'd been breaking down, there was a bubble strip that illuminated the numbers and they would magnify. And it just fitted into the clip. So I just cut it, stuck that in. I said, I think I found the lightsaber, George. He came over, just looked at it and smiled. I mean, that's the biggest approval you can get from George. He just smiled and held it.
One of the most iconic movie props of all time. Is that the very one?
These are, I built a few of them. So I loved the unit, so I bought a couple for myself.
So I'm interjecting here. So he asks, is that the very one? And he doesn't really provide a straight answer to that question. So let me run that back a little bit, because that's just sort of consistent with my research into this. Is, people ask him, is that the one in your hand? And he's sort of evasive, and I find it confusing. Let me see here.
One of the most iconic movie props of all time. Is that the very one?
These are, I built a few of them. So I loved the unit, so I bought a couple for myself. And this is Luke's lightsaber, which Obi-Wan Kenobi takes out of that.
So he's kind of evasive, and then he kind of gives a yes, but it's not a real yes. And then he makes it sound like, this is the one. I'm going to roll it back just a little bit again.
One of the most iconic movie props of all time. Is that the very one?
These are, I built a few of them. So I loved the unit, so I bought a couple for myself. And this is Luke's lightsaber, which Obi-Wan Kenobi takes out of that trunk and gives to Luke and said, this is your father's weapon.
This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight. Not as clumsy or random as a blast.
It's a battery flash tube that stood like that on a press camera from the 40s. And this is what I found, because I couldn't find anything that was iconograph. And I look at it, it's got this, it's got the red button on it. I didn't add any of this. This is what there was.
Now, I always imagine it to be quite weighted.
It's weighted.
And it is, yeah. So that kind of gives it the feel. So when Luke first takes this from Obi-Wan Kenobi, he kind of, holds it in his hand and kind of feels the weight before he turns it on. And that is just as it was in the very first movie. So you made it several prototypes.
Yeah, and that, I always believe, like with the weapons, I'd seen so many times actors, they're really light, they're made of plastic, and you can see, I wanted guns that when they picked them up, they had to use them like real guns, and the lightsaber had to have that feel to it. So it's probably now the most iconic prop in the world. And it's back, The Last Jedi, this is what the film is all about, this lightsaber. Whose is it? There's so much going on the internet about this thing that I made for, I don't know, 12 quid, 12 pounds, something like that.
So again, I find it really difficult to understand, is that the lightsaber that was used in the film that's up for auction? He kind of goes back and forth. He's sort of evasive and then kind of makes it sound like it is. And then the use of the word prototype, I've seen that come up several times. And to me, a prototype is something that was never used in the film. It's something that exists prior to the final example that is then used. So I've seen the word prototype come up a few times, and I don't really understand his understanding of what that word means. Because sometimes he uses the word prototype, and it would seem to mean, in his mind, like a very post-production replica. So it's puzzling. Let's go back to the listing here. So this is the current listing for the item that's up for auction. And here's the photos. So in the video that we just watched, there were some pans, some close-up pans to this one that he's holding in this interview. So I did some screen captures of those sort of close-up pans of that lightsaber. So I'm going to take a quick look at these because it's moving during that documentary. Here you can see the stills. Okay, so when I was looking at these, I noticed that they appear, this example that was in this documentary, which at least the YouTube date was February of this year. So this lightsaber that appears in this documentary seems to match up to the one that's depicted in the letter of authenticity, not the one up for auction. So just to quickly review the part 2 video that we did yesterday, this is a photo I took at Comic-Con in July of this year of the lightsaber that was on display at the Profiles in History booth. That's in the upper left-hand corner. The one in the center, top center, is the one depicted in the letter of authenticity, which appears in its 4 pages below. And it's page 3 where this image comes from. And then to the far right top corner is one of the auction catalog photos. And I noted in the last video that this detail here, this little rivet on the lever, it doesn't match the one on the letter of authenticity. So the one on the letter of authenticity is sort of this more rusted, rounded, hammered sort of look. And this one looks more machined, and it's silver. So I pulled those screen captures from that documentary that we just watched an excerpt from. And the one in the documentary appears to match the one in the letter of authenticity. So on the far right bottom corner, this image is a blow up of one of the images seen in that documentary. The bottom left corner is a blow-up crop of one of the photos in the letter of authenticity. And then the top left is one of the auction catalog photos. So if you look at the two bottom ones, there's this rusted little rivet with kind of, like I said, more of a hammered appearance. Like it's a little bit uneven. It's a little bit smashed. Same thing here on the documentary photo. Also, I didn't point this out in the last video. There's this V-shaped scratch in the lever here in the documentary one. Same thing here on the letter of authenticity. Not present on the auction catalog photo. And in fact, it has sort of a different scratch right above where this one is. They're on opposing sides. So for the sake of this video, my observation is that the lightsaber that Roger Christian appears with in this documentary is the same one that is shown in the photo on the letter of authenticity, and different from what's in the catalog for this lightsaber that's up for auction. And if you didn't read or watch my other videos or read my other articles, if you go to page 3 of the letter of authenticity, where it shows this different photos of this different lightsaber that's not the one that's in the catalog images for the auction, it says this lightsaber below is one of the originals, and it is authenticated as made by me, the maker of Luke's lightsaber, for which I won the Academy Award, Roger Christian, October 2017. So October 2017, this YouTube, it was put on, this documentary was put on YouTube in February of 2018. I don't know when it was originally broadcast. I'd have to do a little bit more research. If I can figure that out, I'll put the answer in the accompanying article on the original prop blog. But this YouTube went up after the date of that letter of authenticity that shows a photo of this lightsaber. So I'm trying to move along quickly because I know these videos get long. When you go back to the auction description, just as a reminder, it says that this lightsaber is original production used Luke Skywalker lightsaber from Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. And it says here, and this is from the LOA, I handmade about 5 to use during the filming, and the one you are buying is one of those used throughout the filming in London. So he's saying he made 5. He handmade 5. So he personally made 5. And this one that's up for auction was used throughout filming in London, and it's, quote, production use. That's in the title. And just as a reminder, we looked at this briefly in the very first video. This is a Reuters news video that was put up on December 3rd about this auction. I'm just going to play a really short snippet here.
As far as Star Wars memorabilia is concerned, this offering is unprecedented. You don't have so many items like the screen-used lightsaber.
Okay, so he says screen-used lightsaber. So the description says production used. Brian with profile says screen used. I'm going to close this window. Again, in Roger Christian's own words, for this catalog description and the letter of authenticity, he says, I handmade about 5 to use during filming, and the one you were buying is one of those used throughout the filming in London. And he handmade 5. Okay, so this is an interview with the Kong blog. This is from October 2014. It's an interview with Roger Christian. And in this interview, he says, he's talking about, the origins of this lightsaber and talking to George Lucas. He says, he asked me to attach a D-ring on the end as he wanted to attach it to Luke's belt for some scenes in Tunisia. With this attached, I mocked up a second one to go to Tunisia and gave a third one to John Steers to adapt for the laser light effect. The one I made is the one that Obi-Wan Kenobi brings out of his trunk and gives to Luke in his cave. So in this interview in 2014, he's making it sound like he made 3. Okay, so we're done with the Kong blog. The BBC, this is a BBC interview in December of 2014. Oscar winner tells of building Star Wars lightsabers. Another interview, within a couple months. And here it says, Christian said, I constructed 2 original laser sword handles used throughout the film and a third one to use as a spare. I had my prop maker make more for rehearsal, stunts, and background ones. So here he's saying there was 2 primary ones used throughout the film, a third to use as a spare, and not himself, but his prop maker made more for rehearsal, stunts, and background ones. So there's just a lot of inconsistencies about this. And, it was 40 years ago. People's memories, aren't always completely reliable. But I keep coming across these interviews that are within, the same kind of time span. Like this is December 2014. And the other one I just read is from October 2014. So within 2 months of each other. And even these aren't consistent. So it's just an inconsistency. So that just raises questions for me. So in the first video, I played a couple little snippets from the CBC radio interview. And I thought it was important to kind of revisit this in light of other things that we've been looking at here. So I'm going to just bring up a couple little snippets here at the start here.
The lightsaber is here.
Yep.
That is the lightsaber.
That's exactly the one that Obi-Wan Kenobi brings out of the trunk and gives to Luke.
Okay, so again, this is kind of like that documentary interview where the interviewer is saying that's the lightsaber. And there's a little bit of a hesitation, but then he makes it sound like it is. So let me just start.
Saber is here.
Yep.
That is the lightsaber.
That's exactly the one that Obi-Wan Kenobi brings out of the trunk and gives to Luke and says, this was your father's, and which plays a huge prominent role in the new film.
So not only does he say that's the one, he says that's exactly the one. I'm going to play this one more time just because it's under 20 seconds, and I think it's really important.
Yep.
That is the lightsaber.
That's exactly the one that Obi-Wan Kenobi brings out of the trunk and gives to Luke and says, this was your father's, and which plays a huge prominent role in the new film.
So could you describe, I can't believe I'm here with the lightsaber. Can you describe it for the people listening?
Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to another important point.
That's exactly, I made 2 or 3 of these, and they're the ones that came out of the trunk in Obi-Wan's cave.
So again, he says he made 2 or 3 of them, and this was in December of 2015. Okay, so now I'm going to jump to the very end of this interview here.
That was set decorator, writer, producer, director, and Academy Award winner Roger Christian. He's a person who designed the original Star Wars lightsaber that is in Studio Q right now and created sets, props, and even R2-D2 for the first Star Wars film.
So again, he points at it and says it's in the studio, the lightsaber. So this is the other video that is, I think it's sort of an after behind the scenes little short 2-minute video, which we're not even going to watch all 2 minutes. I teed it up just to about halfway through here.
What I had to do is get these made because there's so many questions about this. This is exactly duplicated everything. This is the exact as I made on the first one, everything.
Now I'm less afraid. I've held it once.
So now, after, the interview's over, he's talking about it as if it's a replica. So, I'm going to play this little snippet again.
What I had to do is get these made because there's so many questions about this. This is exactly duplicated everything. This is the exact as I made on the first one, everything.
So he says exactly duplicated exactly as I made. So he makes it sound like this is a replica. And I wasn't able to do the close-up analysis of this one to see whether this is the one that's depicted in the letter of authenticity or whether it's the one that's presented in the auction catalog photos. But again, it's just these weird inconsistencies. This is another interview. This is from a public library. It's from December 14th, 2017. So almost to the day a year ago. I'm going to play just a couple minutes of this. I think it's important.
Yeah, they wanted me to show you something.
Okay, there's something wrapped in. I just thought this was your keffiyeh. That's what I. Hey, everybody.
I had to make several for the film. This is one of them. So,
Well, I got to get.
because I was going to bring.
So I'm interrupting. He says, I had to make several for the film. This is one of them. So he's saying this is one of the ones he made for the film. I'll back it up just a tiny bit here.
Something wrapped in. I just thought this was your keffiyeh. That's what I. Hey, everybody.
I had to make several for the film. This is one of them. So,
Well, I got to get.
because I was going to bring it out. If we had a lightsaber question, I was going to bring it out then. But oh, you want a picture?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, if I die on the way home, that's.
So I'm going to skip ahead almost to the very end now, just for this last little bit.
It should be more like that, but that's the only difference. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as this is exactly. It's I made a few of them. This is exactly what came out of Obi-Wan's box, and he presented to Luke as his father's weapon.
Okay, everyone, this is pretty cool.
So he said he made a few of them, and that's, I don't want to misquote him. I'm going to run it back a little bit here.
This is exactly. It's I made a few of them. This is exactly what came out of Obi-Wan's box, and he presented to Luke as his father's weapon.
Okay, everyone.
So he said, this is exactly what came out of Obi-Wan's box. So this is a video from Roger Christian's own Facebook page, Cinema Alchemist.
This is Luke's lightsaber, which appears in A Force Awakens. This is the original that I made for Luke from a Graflex handle, a bubble strip from a calculator, and some T-strip for the handle.
So he says that's the original. Okay, so someone sent me a link to this post on Roger Christian's Cinema Alchemist Facebook page from January 15th, 2016. These are the photos that were used on the letter of authenticity for the current lightsaber up for auction. These are the exact same photos. And Roger Christian writes, this is an exact prototype of Luke's lightsaber I made with an old Graflex, some T-strip, a bubble strip from a calculator, and a D-ring held together with a lot of super glue. So he's saying this is an exact prototype, which my reading of that would mean replica. But someone can correct me if I'm wrong. So on the left, we have the letter of authenticity for the lightsaber that's currently up for auction by Profiles in History. On the right, we have the Facebook post that I just read from. And as you can see, this photo matches this photo, and this photo matches this photo. And this other photo is on the next page of the LOA. So on the letter of authenticity, he writes, this lightsaber below is one of my originals, and it is authenticated as made by me. the maker of Luke's lightsaber, for which I won the Academy Award, signed Roger Christian, October 2017. Here's the two photos. The same photos appear over here from January of 2016. And in this Facebook post, he says, "This is an exact prototype of Luke's lightsaber I made with an old Graflex, some T-strip, a bubble strip from a calculator, and a D-ring held together with a lot of super glue." So I'm even more confused now because this lightsaber in the letter of authenticity for the auction doesn't match the images of the lightsaber that's up for auction. And then he's saying two different things here, So that's why I did another video. I don't know. It's just all really confusing to me. And I can't believe it's just me that's confused. So that's about all I have for this video today. I've tried to be open-minded. I've tried to be respectful of all parties. I don't have all the answers. That's why I'm asking questions. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's more information out there that will address all these questions. I don't know. I'm not interested in bidding on this piece. I couldn't afford this piece. If someone else does and they win, that's their prerogative. I'm not going to interfere with that or tell people they should or shouldn't bid on something. I just write articles about this art market and news and developments and trends and all that good stuff. So this is just part of that process for me personally. I'm just a guy with a YouTube channel that I think has like 25 subscribers right now. So I don't know how much play these videos are even getting, but I thought it was important to at least memorialize what basically the questions I have about this auction. So down the road, if someone wants to do research about where this lightsaber came from and anything like that, at least there's an information resource in the form of these videos and these articles that someone could reference and do a little homework on it. Because I don't think this is going to be the last lightsaber we see up for auction, So that's why I reference past sales as well, just so there's some kind of a history of what's come up for market and what's sold and how things are described. And that's pretty much it. So thanks for checking out this video. Thank you. So this is an addendum to the video that you just finished watching. I was in the process of editing it and I received a message in response to a request I put out a couple days ago. So a friend of mine had started a topic on his personal Facebook page about this lightsaber and this auction, and it had a lot of comments. And in reading it, I saw that one of the comments was from Jason Joyner of the Kurtz Joyner Archive. Gary Kurtz, of course, was a producer on the original trilogy of Star Wars films, and he retained a number of original props that were used in the film. So Gary Kurtz and Jason Joyner founded the Kurtz Joyner Archive, and as I've mentioned in the prior two videos, the other two lightsabers that were attributed to Star Wars A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back by the character Luke Skywalker, those both came from the Kurtz Joyner Archive. So I thought it was interesting that he was commenting on this new lightsaber auction that did not come from them. So I'm not really in a position to agree or disagree or really in any way evaluate what Jason's saying in his message, but I did make a call for other comments and perspectives and anyone that has any interesting information to share that pertains to this discussion about this auction and this lightsaber. This is very much a unique perspective, so I thought it was worthy of sharing to people, and you can, evaluate it however you choose to, but I thought it was something that was interesting. So I'm going to read this now, and there's a couple typos I noted when I went through it the first time, so I'm going to try to sort of correct those as I go along. So if what I'm reading doesn't quite line up with what you see on the screen, that's why I'm just trying to convey what I believe he intended when he wrote this message. So he says, "Hi all. I can 100% confirm that this saber has never been the property of our archive. Roger offered myself and Gary this saber, and we are interested in buying it. When the photos came in, I felt that the dressing was not period and were, in fact, new parts. Gary did an interview with Roger around 2 years ago, and I believe he means at that time, Roger asked the archive for photos of some of the original props. And the important one for him was the comlink for his book, ? After talking to Roger on the phone, I felt that he was more interested in the comlink parts image for his book, and I did not make the image available for him. Sometime later, Roger offered me this saber for around $100,000, which we did consider if it was another version to what we have in the archive. When I saw it, I lost interest in the saber. As I said, it looked like the components were modern and not the same as the ones we have in the archive. I did not feel the need to say much until now, as it was not on my radar that it was on the open market. These are just my personal opinions, but I wanted to say, and I believe he means something in public, as the Kurtz Joyner archive name has come up in this post, and I wanted to make it 100% clear that this did not come from us. We sold some items off through Profiles in History at one time when Gary and myself wanted to fund buying some other important artifacts that we felt the archive needed to own. That funding was achieved at that time by selling off some doubles. It was a rare activity for us to do this, as we rarely sell anything, as we buy to gather up to protect history. I hope that helps put a little more info out there for others. Yours, Jason." So like I said, I'm not here to agree. I'm not here to disagree. I'm not really here to evaluate this. I'm just sort of viewing this as a unique perspective. It's basically up to anyone else to evaluate this however you see fit, but I thought it was worth sharing. So thanks again for checking out the video. And as I've said, if you have interesting information or insights or a unique perspective on this, feel free to get in touch with me or make a comment to this YouTube video or on the original prop blog article that's related to this video. Thanks.